Hello, everyone. Welcome to Barca News. It is May 4th, 2025, and Barcelona are on track to exceeding their financial forecast. Also, talks with Rafinha have begun to renew his contract. And finally, the option of signing Luis Diaz is officially ruled out. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo and I'm still out of the country. I'm not at home, I'm not in my YouTube studio, so I cannot film, edit, and upload videos. Therefore, I'm bringing you this short live stream to keep you up to date on all Barcelona news. This is not a podcast, so I will not be addressing the chat section, but nonetheless, I'm ready to give you all the Barcelona news from today. Having said all that, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment, and let's begin with the news because as you know, today, Barcelona defeated Real Valladolid 1-2, taking home 3 very important points. And now Barcelona are 7 points out of Real Madrid, who are set to play their respective match today against Celta Vigo, where if they lose, the difference will stay at 7 points, and Barcelona would have a chance to win the Liga against Real Madrid in El Clásico at their home stadium in Montjuic, which I think it would be absolutely historic because, of course, Barcelona would have won the Spanish Super Cup final against Madrid, the Copa del Rey final against Madrid, and then to win the Liga against Madrid in their own home stadium. I think that would be pretty amazing. But again, for that to happen, Madrid has to lose against Celta Vigo tomorrow, and Barcelona would have to win a Clásico match, which I do think Barcelona are more than capable of winning a Clásico match. Whether Real Madrid beats or lose to Celta Vigo or not, that's a whole nother story. That's something that's not in our hands. But anyways, I did do the post-match live analysis. So if you want to hear my thoughts and opinions about the match between Barcelona and Real Valladolid, make sure to check out that video on the channel. Now, let's start with good news because, ladies and gentlemen, Barcelona are set to exceed their financial forecast for this 2024-2025 fiscal year. And that's, of course, great news for Barcelona's financial fair play and great news for Barcelona's financial health and Barcelona's aspirations to sign players and register them during this summer transfer market. Now, at the beginning of every season, the club issues a financial forecast where they say, this is how much we think we're going to make, this is how much we think we're going to spend, and this is how much we think we're going to have profit at the end of the year or losses, or we might break even. That's, of course, a forecast for the entire fiscal year, which ends on June 30th. And well, Barcelona had forecasted that they were going to generate in revenue 843 million euros. And that at the end of the year, they would only have 5 million euro in profit. If you don't know the difference between revenue and profit, revenue is how much money you make. Profit is when you take your revenue, subtract your expenses, and then you either have a profit, a loss, or you break even. Barcelona had forecasted 843 million euros in revenue with 5 million euros in profit. And Barcelona are on track to exceed this forecast, which means that they could end up with even more profits than the 5 million euros they thought they were going to make as profit during this year. Now, starting with Barcelona had forecasted 22 million euros in revenue from transfers and loans, from selling players and sending them out on loans. They had forecasted 22 million euros. They've already far exceeded that. They had already exceeded that before the season even began. Why? Because Barcelona made 23 million euros, so 1 million euro more than their original forecast on the transfers of Julian Araujo, Mika Fay, and Mariu. So before the season even began, Barcelona had already exceeded their forecast of 22 million euros from revenue from transfers by getting 23 million euros from transfers. And then they continued to exceed it when they transferred Vitor Roque for 25.5 million euros to Palmeiras. That one is going to be more of a break even once you take into consideration amortization. But let's continue. Unai Hernandez, 4.5 million euros from his move to, was it Qatar? Somewhere in the Middle East. That was 4.5 million euros in pure profit for Barcelona. Also, Nico Gonzalez, him moving to Manchester City, Barcelona made 10.5 million euros. That's going to go into exceeding the forecast. And they're talking about Todibo. Barcelona are going to make 8.5 million euros. So all of that is going to be know, 23 million euros more than originally forecasted. That's pretty good. You think you're going to make 22 million euros, you end up making 23, even 23 more. That's pretty amazing. Also, the fact that Barcelona are doing so well in the season, that has also helped Barcelona exceed their forecast. For example, in the Champions League, Barcelona have already made 15 million euros more than what they had initially thought. And if they move on to the final, that's an extra 18.5 million euros. And if they win, that's another 6.5 million euros. So if you add that up, that's what, 25 million plus the 15, that's 40 million euros more from the Champions League than Barcelona had initially forecasted. Then there's the 1.2 million euros that they made from winning the Copa del Rey. That was also not in the budget. That's another extra that Barcelona have made. So Barcelona are exceeding their forecast, which means they might have more profit at the end of the day. And why do I say more, that maybe they might have more profit than what they initially forecasted, is because, of course, we've also lost money. We lost money, 28 million euros from our failure to move to the Camp Nou. That's a lot of money. Also, Barcelona has renewed contracts, which have triggered, of course, bonuses and all kinds of other payments, which was not in the forecast. So we'll see how we end up at the end of the year. But so far, it's looking really good with Barcelona exceeding many of their own financial expectations. Anyways, let's move on to news because, ladies and gentlemen, today, Pablo Torre, he was expected to get some minutes against Real Valladolid. He didn't. And I'm seeing some people asking why. And that's because he felt discomfort in his left knee before the match. We don't know if it's serious injury or not an injury at all. It might be just, just some discomfort. Maybe he hit his knee with another player while he's warming up. We don't know, but we do know that Pablo Torre felt discomfort in his left knee. That's why he was kept out. That's why he didn't get any minutes. Of course, as usual, he'll get some medical exams done tomorrow, and we'll find out the extent of that discomfort. And of course, we also saw Gabi. He got injured during the match against Real Valladolid. We're also going to have to wait tomorrow until he does his medical exams, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully nothing serious for Pablo Torre or for Gabi either. Now, speaking of injuries, as you might know if you watched yesterday's video, is Marc Casado. He's returned to group training. That's really, really good, which signifies that Marc Casado is very, very close to finalizing his recovery. And we now know exactly, or around approximately, let's say, not exactly, but approximately when Marc Casado will come back. Now, when Marc Casado was first injured against Atletico Madrid, he was expected to be out for 2 months. He is back in group training ahead of schedule. However, Flick and his staff, they didn't want to risk it. They didn't want to bring on Marc Casado and then, God forbid, he gets re-injured. So they still want him to complete the 2 months that they had already anticipated he would be out for. So what does that mean? That means that Marc Casado could be back for that derby against Espanyol, which will be May 15th, which means he would be there for the final 3 matches of La Liga. Against Espanyol, against Atletico Bilbao. I think we're playing against Villarreal, if I'm not mistaken. And then, hopefully, if we do make it to the Champions League final, it means he would also be available for that match. And that's, of course, great news because we need all of our players as healthy as possible. Now, we move on to more news because, ladies and gentlemen, talks with Raphinha have begun to extend the contract of the Brazilian. Of course, Raphinha's contract expires in 2027. Given the great season that he's having so far, having scored 31 goals, provided 25 assists, Barcelona want to extend his contract for 2 more seasons. And it's been spotted that Deco met with Raphinha's agent at the Barcelona offices. And that meeting was in order to lay the groundwork for the contract renewal of Raphinha. So we'll see how that contract renewal happens. Most likely it's going to go smoothly because Raphinha has made it very clear that he wants to stay at Barcelona. Barcelona want to keep Raphinha, so it's only going to be a matter of agreeing on the numbers. Now, of course, it's going to be up to Raphinha's agent and Deco, but I cannot imagine this getting very complicated unless somehow Raphinha, through his agent, asks for some crazy high salary that Barcelona cannot afford. That probably would be the only way that this will be derailed because, again, both parties want to continue the relationship together. And speaking of attackers, we'll end this video discussing Luis Diaz because he is now even more ruled out than before. As you know, Deco's favorite option to reinforce the left wing is Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz has always said that it's his dream to come play for Barcelona. But of course, this option was already ruled out before by Barcelona, A, for the price. they said Liverpool would want around 75 million euros, which Barcelona cannot afford, and B, because of his age, he's 28 years old. So Barcelona had already ruled out this option, but now it's even more ruled out because reports out of England are stating that Liverpool has initiated negotiation talks with Luis Diaz in order to extend his contract. So it looks like he's staying in the Premier League. But again, Barcelona had already ruled this out because of his age and his price. Anyways, that is all the news for this video. I did do the post-match live analysis. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure to check it out. Tomorrow, I'm going to be back home. So tomorrow is back to your regularly scheduled videos and podcasts. So I'm very, very excited for that, especially with the podcast. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, drop a comment. And as always, peace,